They humiliated him for years. The ending was ruthless. Hold him down. The voice was cold and sharp like broken glass. Strong hands pressed Cato into the dirt. He felt the blade touch his scalp, cold metal against warm skin. The crowd roared around him, their voices twisted with anger and satisfaction. "Please," Cato screamed, his throat raw with desperation. "I am innocent. I swear by my ancestors, I did nothing." But his words were swallowed by their shouting. Women spat at him. Men cursed his name. Children pointed and laughed, not understanding what was happening but joining the cruelty anyway. The blade moved. He felt the first strands of his hair fall away. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the dust on his cheeks. "I don't know her," he cried again. "I have never touched that woman." Nobody listened. Nobody cared. They had already decided he was guilty. The village had spoken. And in Kodoro, the village was always right. The metal scraped against his head again and again. With each stroke, Cato felt something inside him die. His dignity, his hope, his belief that truth mattered. The crowd cheered louder as more hair fell to the ground. They dragged him through the village center like an animal. His feet scraped against stones and thorns. Blood mixed with dirt on his skin. "Defiler!" Someone screamed from the crowd. "Abomination!" Another voice added. Old women who once greeted him kindly now threw stones at his back. Young men who once called him brother now laughed at his suffering. Cato's mind spun in confusion and terror. He remembered going home after working in the fields. He remembered his uncle offering him palm wine. "You must be tired," his uncle had said with a smile. "Drink this and rest." Cato had trusted him. He had drunk deeply, grateful for the kindness. Then everything went dark. Now he woke to this nightmare. A woman he had never seen before lay beside him in a hut. People surrounded them, screaming accusations. She pointed at him with trembling fingers. "He forced himself on me," she whispered. But Cato saw something in her eyes. Fear. Not of him, but of someone else. "I don't know you," Cato said desperately. "Please, tell them the truth." She turned her face away and said nothing more. Kodoro was not like other villages. Here baldness was sacred. Here baldness was law. Every man in the village was bald from birth. Their smooth heads shined under the sun like polished stones. It had been this way for generations, since the great curse fell upon their ancestors. The elders taught that hair was a sign of impurity, a mark of shame that the spirits had removed from worthy men. To be bald was to be blessed. To be bald was to belong. But Cato was born different. From the moment he entered the world, thick black hair covered his head. The midwives gasped when they saw him. The elders whispered that evil had entered their village. While other boys played freely, Cato walked alone. His hair made him beautiful, but beauty in Kodoro was dangerous. People stared at him with a mixture of fascination and disgust. Some admired him secretly. Others hated him openly. His difference was a mirror that showed them what they could never have. And for that, they could never forgive him. The night Cato was born, death came with him. His mother's screams filled the darkness as she pushed him into the world. The moment he took his first breath, she took her last. Her body grew cold while the baby cried loudly in the midwife's arms. The village gathered quickly, shock and sorrow heavy in the air. But sorrow soon turned to suspicion. "Look at his head," someone whispered, pointing at the newborn's hair. "He carries a curse." By sunrise, the whispers had become accusations. The child with hair had killed his mother. The spirits were angry. Misfortune had been born. Cato's father tried to defend his son. "He is just a baby," he pleaded with the elders. "How can an infant be blamed for death?" But grief and fear are powerful teachers of cruelty. The village needed someone to blame, and the strange child was an easy target. His father held him close that morning, tears falling on the baby's face. "They will never forgive you for being different," he whispered. "But I will protect you as long as I breathe." Those words would haunt Cato forever. Because his father's breath did not last long. After his father died from a mysterious illness 3 years later, Cato was sent to live with his uncle, Maduka. The house looked welcoming from outside. A strong mud structure with a neat compound and healthy crops surrounding it. Maduka smiled warmly when Cato arrived, a small frightened boy clutching a worn cloth bag. "You are family," Maduka said, placing his hand on the child's shoulder. "You will always have a home here, but smiles can hide poison." Inside the house, away from watching eyes, Maduka's face changed. He looked at Cato's hair with barely concealed hatred. His own son, Chima, was bald like everyone else in Kadoro. Plain, unremarkable, easily forgotten, while Cato, cursed and orphaned, still drew attention wherever he walked. Maduka fed Cato the smallest portions. He gave him the hardest work. He praised Chima for every small achievement while ignoring Cato's efforts completely. At night, Cato heard his uncle and aunt whispering, "Why does that boy have what our son will never have? People still talk about him, even when he does nothing." Envy lived in that house like a third child, growing stronger every day. As Cato grew older, his hair grew longer and more striking. When he walked to the stream, women stopped their washing to stare. When he worked in the fields, men paused to watch. "Your hair shines like the night sky," an old woman once told him. Cato smiled politely but felt cold inside. He had learned that every compliment was dangerous. Every kind word about his appearance made someone else angry. His cousin Chima began to hate him more openly. "Why do they look at you?" Chima would hiss when they were alone. "You're nothing special. You're just a cursed orphan." Other young men in the village felt the same way. They would gather in groups, laughing loudly when Cato passed, making sure he heard their mockery. "The hair boy thinks he's better than us," they would say. "Hair won't save you from being alone forever," another would add. Cato tried to make himself smaller. He tied his hair back tightly. He avoided the market and village gatherings. He spoke less and worked more. But it didn't matter. His existence itself was the problem. In a village where sameness meant safety, his difference was an unforgivable crime. The more people noticed him, the closer danger came. Then came the day the oracle spoke. The entire village gathered at the sacred grove, summoned by the sound of the talking drum. Something important was about to be revealed. The oracle was ancient, her face carved with deep lines of wisdom and time. She stood at the center of the grove, leaning on a staff made from ironwood. Her cloudy eyes seemed to see through people, past their skin and into their souls. Smoke from burning herbs filled the air. The drums stopped. Silence fell heavy like a stone. "The curse will end," the oracle announced, her voice surprisingly strong. The people gasped. For generations, they had lived under the curse of baldness, accepting it as their fate. "The one who carries what was taken will rise," she continued. "He will lead you out of darkness. He will restore what was lost." The villagers looked at each other, confused and excited. Then the oracle lifted her staff and pointed directly at Cato. "The boy with hair," she said clearly. "He is the chosen one." Every eye turned to Cato. Some faces showed hope, others showed shock. But on Maduka's face, there was something far more dangerous. Pure, calculating rage. That night, Maduka could not sleep. He sat outside his hut, staring at the stars but seeing nothing. His mind churned with bitter thoughts. The oracle had chosen Cato, the cursed orphan, the boy with hair, the one who had nothing, who owned nothing, who was nothing, would now become everything. While Chima, Maduka's own blood, would remain forgotten. "It's not right," Maduka whispered to himself. "It's not fair." An idea began to form in his mind, dark and terrible. If Cato lost his purity, he would lose everything. The oracle's prophecy would be void. Someone else could rise to leadership, perhaps even Chima. The next evening, Maduka put his plan into action. He found Cato returning from the farm, tired and dusty from a long day of work. "Nephew," Maduka called out warmly, his smile perfectly crafted. You look exhausted. Come sit. I have prepared something for you. Cato hesitated. His uncle's kindness always felt strange, like fruit that looked ripe but tasted rotten. But he was truly tired, and the day had been long. Drink this, Meduca said, handing him a calabash filled with palm wine. You work too hard. Rest. You deserve it. Cato drank deeply. The wine tasted sweet, too sweet. Within moments, his vision blurred. His body grew impossibly heavy. Darkness swallowed him whole. Cato woke to screaming. At first, the sounds seemed far away, like voices heard through water. Then they grew louder, sharper, crashing into his confused mind. His head pounded. His mouth tasted bitter. His body felt weak, drained of all strength. He tried to sit up and realized he was lying on a mat in an unfamiliar hut. Beside him lay a woman he had never seen before. She was awake, her eyes wide with fear. Before Cato could speak, the door burst open. Meduca stood there, his face arranged in perfect shock. Behind him crowded half the village, torches lighting up the night. What is this abomination? Meduca shouted, pointing at Cato and the woman. The woman began to cry. He forced me, she stammered, her voice shaking. Cato's mind spun. What? No, I don't know you. I've never… Liar! Someone from the crowd screamed. Others joined in, their voices building like a storm. Defiler! False chosen one! He has shamed us all. Cato looked desperately at the woman. Please, he begged, tell them the truth. I don't know what happened, but I never touched you. She turned her face away, tears streaming down her cheeks. And in that moment, Cato understood. The trap was perfect. He had been set up. And there was no escape. The elders were summoned immediately. They arrived with stern faces, already convinced of Cato's guilt before hearing a single word of defense. The village tradition was clear. A man who defiled a woman, especially one chosen by the oracle, had committed the greatest offense. There was no need for questions, no need for investigation. The woman's word was enough. Cato tried to speak. Elders, please listen. I was given a drink by my uncle. After that, I remember nothing. I swear on my mother's grave, I did not touch this woman. I don't even know her name. The eldest among them raised his hand for silence. The evidence is clear, he said coldly. You were found together. She has accused you. That is enough. But I'm innocent. Cato's voice cracked with desperation. Someone drugged me. Someone planned this. Please investigate. Ask questions. Find the truth. The elder's face remained unchanged. Tradition demands justice. Tradition demands punishment. You will be shaved. Your hair, the mark of your supposed chosenness, will be removed. You will be marked as an outcast. This is our judgment. No trial. No mercy. No chance to defend himself. The sentence was absolute. Cato fell to his knees, not from acceptance, but from the crushing weight of injustice. They brought him to the village square the next morning. The entire population gathered, forming a tight circle around the center. Some faces showed satisfaction. Others showed pity. Most showed nothing but cold acceptance of tradition. Cato was forced to kneel in the dirt. His arms were held by two strong men so he couldn't resist. The village barber approached, carrying a sharp blade that glinted in the morning sun. Please, Cato whispered one last time. I am innocent. The blade touched his scalp. He felt the cold metal against his skin, the pressure of the edge. Then the cutting began. His beautiful black hair, the hair that had marked him as different from birth, the hair the oracle had pointed to as a sign of destiny, fell in thick clumps to the ground. The crowd erupted in cheers. Women ululated. Men shouted approval. Children danced around the scattered hair, kicking it like dust. Tears poured down Cato's face, but he made no sound. He would not give them the satisfaction of hearing him scream. With each stroke of the blade, he felt hope die inside him. When it was finished, his head was completely bare. Smooth and vulnerable, exposed to the harsh judgment of the sun and the village. They thought they had won. They thought they had destroyed him. They had no idea what they had truly done. Life after the shaving was worse than Cato could have imagined. He became invisible and hypervisible at the same time. People crossed the road to avoid walking near him. Mothers pulled their children away when he approached. Former friends turned their backs when he greeted them. He was a ghost among the living, present but erased. At the market, traders refused to sell to him. "Your money carries shame," one woman said, spitting on the ground. At the stream, others would stop fetching water and leave when he arrived, as if his presence contaminated the very source of life. Children, cruel in their innocence, created songs about him. They would sing loudly when he passed. "Hair boy, shame boy, chosen one no more. Bald head, dead dreams, nobody's son anymore." Their laughter cut deeper than any blade. Even his uncle Maduka, the architect of his destruction, publicly rejected him. "I raised him like my own son," Maduka told anyone who would listen. "But evil cannot be trained out of a cursed child. I am ashamed to share blood with him." Cato worked alone in distant fields. He ate alone in corners. He existed in a prison without walls, sentenced to isolation more complete than any chain could create. Shame, he learned, isolates better than any physical barrier. It builds walls inside the mind that no one else can see but everyone can feel. One evening, as Cato sat alone outside his small hut at the edge of the village, an old woman approached. She walked slowly, leaning heavily on a walking stick. Her name was Mama Nkiru, the oldest person in Kodoro. Most people avoided her because she spoke uncomfortable truths and asked difficult questions. She sat down beside Cato without asking permission. For a long moment, she said nothing, just stared at the setting sun. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "The elders buried something," she said. "A truth they don't want anyone to remember." Cato looked at her, surprised that anyone would speak to him at all. "What truth?" Mama Nkiru's ancient eyes fixed on his bare head. "Long ago, before you were born, before most of the living elders were born, there was a law. Written in the old books that no one reads anymore." She paused, making sure no one else was listening. "The law says that when a man's hair is shaved for immorality, his guilt or innocence will be revealed by the spirits. If he is truly guilty, he will remain bald forever, like the rest of us. But if he is innocent—" She stopped, letting the weight of her words settle. "If he is innocent, his hair will grow back within the cycle of one moon. The innocent never stay bald." Cato's heart stopped. His hand unconsciously touched his bare scalp. "Why doesn't anyone speak of this?" Mama Nkiru stood up slowly, preparing to leave. "Because sometimes people prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Watch your head, child. The spirits are watching too." 3 weeks passed. Cato lived in a fog of despair, barely eating, barely sleeping. Then one morning, as he washed his face in a calabash of water, his hand brushed against his scalp and felt something strange. Something that shouldn't be there. Tiny strands, rough and short, but unmistakable. Hair. His heart raced. He touched his head again, more carefully this time. Yes. Thin strands of hair were growing across his scalp. Not imagination. Not hope playing tricks. Real hair. By the next day, it was more noticeable. By the end of the week, it was impossible to hide. The village noticed. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. "Have you seen Cato's head? Hair is growing back." How is that possible? It shouldn't be possible. Fear replaced mockery in people's eyes. The same people who had cheered at his shaming now avoided looking directly at him. The elders gathered in emergency council, their faces tight with worry. They knew what the old law said. They knew what growing hair meant. But admitting it would mean admitting they had punished an innocent man. It would mean someone else was guilty. It would mean everything they believed was built on lies. Maduka's sleep disappeared completely. He would wake in the night, sweating and shaking. His wife noticed his hands trembling during meals. "What troubles you?" she asked. But Maduka couldn't answer. He could only watch as the truth began to grow, strand by strand, on Cato's head. Guilt has a sound. It sounds like footsteps pacing back and forth in the night. It sounds like whispered prayers that bring no peace. Sounds like a man's voice cracking when he speaks. Maduka was falling apart. During the day, he tried to maintain his reputation as a respected man of the village. He sat with other elders, discussed crops and weather, spoke wisely about traditions. But at night, he became someone else. His wife, Adana, woke one night to find him sitting outside, talking to himself. "It was necessary," he muttered. "The boy had too much attention, too much favor. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair." "Husband, what are you saying?" Adana asked, frightened. Maduka looked at her with wild eyes. The oracle was wrong. She had to be wrong. "My son deserves to lead, not that cursed orphan." Adana's blood ran cold. "What did you do?" But Maduka turned away, unable to meet her eyes. The next day, his behavior grew stranger. He avoided the village square, couldn't look at Cato when they crossed paths. When someone mentioned Cato's growing hair, Maduka would change the subject quickly, his voice too loud, his laugh too forced. The woman he had paid to lie beside Cato had disappeared from the village, but guilt remained. And guilt, Maduka was learning, is a prison that locks from the inside. The royal guards arrived on a quiet morning without warning. 20 men on horses, wearing the colors of the kingdom, their presence commanding and absolute. The entire village stopped working and gathered to see why soldiers had come to Kodoro. The captain dismounted and spoke with authority that made even the elders straighten their backs. "We have received word," he announced, "of a prophecy concerning this village. The king himself has sent us to investigate. We are here to ensure the chosen one is treated according to divine will, not according to human prejudice." Fear rippled through the crowd. The elders exchanged worried glances. This was no longer a village matter. The kingdom had become involved. The captain's eyes scanned the people until they found Cato, standing at the back of the crowd. His hair now clearly visible, growing thick and strong on his previously shaved head. "You are Cato?" the captain asked. Cato stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Yes, sir. The king has heard of your situation. You will come with us. There are questions that need answering." He turned to the elders, his voice cold. "And those who accused him will also come. Truth will be found today, whether you wish it or not." Maduka's legs nearly gave out beneath him. His moment of reckoning had arrived, carried by royal decree and armed with swords. They were brought to the king's court in the capital, a journey that took 2 days. Cato, the woman who had accused him, Maduka, and the village elders all stood before the throne. The king was a man of wisdom, known throughout the land for his fair judgment. He sat surrounded by advisors, his face stern but patient. "This matter disturbs me," the king began. "An oracle speaks, naming a chosen one. Yet within weeks, that same person is publicly shamed and humiliated. Something is wrong." He looked directly at the woman. "Speak truthfully, and you may find mercy. Lie, and you will find justice. What happened that night?" The woman trembled. She had been paid well to play her part. But standing before the king, lies became much harder to maintain. I was told what to say," she whispered. "Told by whom?" "By Maduka, the uncle. He gave me money. He told me to drink a sleeping draught and lie beside Cato. He said when the village found us, I should accuse Cato of forcing himself on me." Gasps filled the court. The king's eyes moved to Maduka. "And you did this why?" Maduka fell to his knees. "I was jealous," he confessed, his voice breaking. "The oracle chose him instead of my son. Couldn't bear it. I thought if he lost his purity, the prophecy would be broken." "You drugged him." "Yes, my king." "You destroyed an innocent man's reputation?" "Yes." The truth, finally spoken aloud, hung in the air like smoke. Heavy, undeniable, devastating. The king sat in silence for a long moment, letting the confession settle in everyone's mind. Then he spoke, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "I could have you executed for this crime," he told Maduka. "Bearing false witness, conspiracy, attempting to subvert divine will. Any of these offenses carries a death sentence." Maduka's entire body shook with fear. "But I will not grant you the mercy of death," the king continued. "Death ends suffering quickly. You will live with what you have done." He pronounced his judgment. Maduka and his family will serve Kato for the rest of their natural lives. Every day they will work in his household. Every day they will be reminded of their crime. Every day they will see the man they tried to destroy rising above them. The king turned to the false witness. "You will return to your home village wearing the mark of a liar. You will work without wages for 10 years, your earnings going to charity. Your name will be remembered as a warning. No blood was spilled. No lives were taken." But Maduka understood immediately that this was worse than death. To live in daily humiliation, to serve the very person you tried to destroy, to watch him succeed while you scrub his floors. This was a ruthless kind of mercy. Justice that hurt more than any sword. Kato watched his uncle collapse in tears and felt something strange. Not joy, not even satisfaction. Just the cold, clear truth that actions have consequences, and some consequences last forever. The king's final decree came the next morning. Kato stood before the throne, no longer a shamed outcast, but a man whose innocence had been proven before the entire kingdom. "Kato," the king said, his voice warm with approval. "The oracle spoke truly. You are the chosen one. Your hair that grew back is proof of your innocence. The spirits have marked you as worthy." He gestured to his advisors. "But there is more to this prophecy than you know." An old scroll was brought forward, its edges worn with age. The king read aloud, "When the innocent one is vindicated, the curse that binds his people will break. What was taken in anger will be restored in justice." As the words left the king's mouth, something miraculous began to happen. Back in Kodoro, men woke that morning to a strange sensation on their heads. They touched their scalps and felt something they had never felt before. Hair. Tiny strands at first, then growing rapidly. Within hours, every man in the village had hair. Generations of baldness ended in a single day. Fathers and sons stood together, both touching their heads in wonder and disbelief. The curse, born from ancient injustice and carried for centuries, dissolved like morning mist under the sun. Messengers brought the news to the capital. The king smiled. "Your innocence has healed not just yourself, but your entire people. This is the work of divine justice." Kato could barely comprehend it. He had lost everything, been humiliated and broken. But in his breaking, healing had come for thousands. Kato returned to Kodoro not as an outcast, but as a leader appointed by the king himself. The entire village gathered to receive him, their heads now covered with hair, their faces marked with shame and wonder. The elders who had condemned him without trial bowed their heads. "We were wrong," they admitted. "Forgive us." Kato looked at them for a long moment. He could have punished them. He had the authority now, but he chose a different path. "I forgive you," he said simply. "But forgiveness does not erase consequences. You will live with what you did. And that is punishment enough." He established his household in the center of the village. And there, every morning, Maduka appeared to sweep the compound. His wife drew water. His son Chima, who had mocked Kato for years, now tended Kato's fields. They worked in silence, their heads bowed, their pride shattered into dust. Kato never spoke cruelly to them. He never raised his voice or his hand. He simply allowed them to serve, to remember, to carry the weight of their betrayal every single day. Other young men who had laughed at him now greeted him with respect, their eyes unable to meet his. Women who had spat at him now asked for his blessing. Children who had sung mocking songs now sat at his feet to hear his wisdom. Kato ruled fairly. He helped the poor. He settled disputes with patience. He led with quiet strength. And every day, Maduka watched him, knowing that he had tried to destroy greatness and had only succeeded in revealing it. The ending was ruthless not because Kato sought revenge, but because he didn't need to. Truth was revenge enough. Justice was punishment enough. And watching the man you betrayed rise to heights you can never reach, that was the most ruthless ending of all. Kato won without cruelty, and that victory destroyed his enemies more completely than any violence ever could. Moral lesson. Jealousy plants seeds of destruction, but innocence has roots deeper than any lie. Those who scheme against the truth do not destroy their victim, they destroy themselves. And sometimes the most ruthless justice is simply allowing the guilty to live with what they have done. Thank you for listening. Remember this story and share it with those who need to hear it.